or its employees. The host is solely responsible for the on-air content.
This is KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit digital resource produced by Charitable Communications. We'll tell the story of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is sponsored by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis, and it's that time again. It's time for Dr. Philanthropy, Jeffrey Byrne.
Hey, Ruth. How are you doing?
Good. It's great to have you back. There's always stuff going on in the nonprofit community, and can't think of anybody better to enlighten us of what's going on.
Well, it's a busy summer, getting ready for most nonprofits, and most nonprofits are going to get frustrated over the summer because all their donors are going to be on vacation, with children, with parents, out of town, and so it's the hectic months of the next 3 months, but it's a good time to be at work.
You've got a guest coming to town in a few weeks who's going to help enlighten many nonprofits, and that's Patrick Rooney, coming up, I believe, on Friday, June 21st.
Yes.
To talk about the Giving USA report and what's giving like, what's it been like, maybe what it will be like, speculating on what it's done. Right. Why is it important to have people like Patrick come in and share this kind of information with nonprofits and profits, for that matter?
Absolutely. Dr. Patrick Rooney will be in town on Friday, June 21, with Nonprofit Connect at 7:30 in the morning at the Ewing Marion Kaufman Center. So any of your viewers who want to go and listen to Patrick and learn more about philanthropy can come to our website at byrnepelofsky.com and sign up, or Nonprofit Connect. But I think, Patrick, Dr. Rooney, brings a research perspective to philanthropy like no one else in the world. He works at the Lilly School, which is the best source of education in the country around philanthropy and the various areas. But, Ruth, I think what's important is that philanthropy can really be looked at as a science, and it can be looked at as an art. The art was yesterday. I was working with a nonprofit in Greater Kansas City, and we were preparing for a $5 million solicitation of a family who owns a very major business. And, we were talking about who's going to play what role with our volunteer chair, our CEO, and I was helping to prepare them about talking points, about conversation, and then about the ultimate ask. So that is the art of fundraising. The science of fundraising, which I really like, because, as Dr. Philanthropy, I am a nerd of fundraising, is really looking at the data and determining how we utilize the data in a best practices manner to understand our donors better, to understand where philanthropy comes from, to understand what the motivations of donors are. It's a number of areas that there's a plethora of research out there that our nonprofits can learn, and not just learn from an intellectual standpoint, but learn so that they can utilize that in the art of fundraising when they're talking to donors, when they're talking to prospects, and utilize that about how to understand, how to motivate, how women are motivated differently than men on giving, how seniors are motivated, areas like that.
How does a nonprofit go about trying to incorporate data in what they do? I think for some, that word is just kind of scary.
Sure. And I think it can be, and it can be overwhelming. So I think just like we have to do when we look at an organization to help them do a fundraising plan, you have to do the same thing about data. You have to segment it. So what we have to do is we have to create an opportunity to understand exactly what you want to know. So, there's so much out there, and the internet can overwhelm someone if they're going to do research. So you really have to hone in on what it is that you want to understand about it, about a donor or about the data. And where I would start, really, is I would start with helping to understand the origins of where philanthropy comes from. And as we know, and Dr. Rooney will talk about on June 21, We know that historically, Americans are the most generous people on the face of the earth, and we give probably, as individuals, 88 cents of every dollar, and corporations and foundations give the rest. So, anytime you think about where philanthropy is coming from, and the majority of the time is coming from us, Ruth, living individuals. So that's one place to start. Another area to look at is, there are a lot of resources out there. There's a resource called Giving USA Foundation. There is the Lilly School of Philanthropy. There's Bank of America and their high net worth study. So you've got to pick and choose what you want, and then you've got to be very specific about how you use a few pieces. All you need to do is take 2 or 3 pieces of data and utilize that to the best of for your knowledge and your conversations.
Are these resources free? Do you have to pay for them?
There is so much information out there for free. Of course, you can pay for it. You can go to the Chronicle on Philanthropy and buy a subscription, or other philanthropic publications or magazines that are online. But there's a lot of data out there. You can go to Fidelity Charitable. You can go to Greater Kansas City Community Foundation. You can go to the Lilly School. You can go to Bank of America's high net worth studies, and you can start to just research there, and from there you can pick links to any other sources of information that is available to you. I'm just literally that's a 30,000 foot view of all the information that's there.
So it sounds like if you're wanting to incorporate data and you haven't before, there's plenty of resources out there. Since there are plenty of resources out there and the internet is, unlimited, how can a nonprofit know that they're getting good data and not people who are throwing things up that really aren't either scientifically vetted or have any rules and regulations that they follow, so that it's legitimate and not hoax? I mean, there's plenty of people putting hoax stuff out there.
Absolutely. And I think that's an excellent question, Ruth. And I think it's something that you've got to vet the sources of information that you want to utilize for the information that you're seeking. So, from my standpoint, what I do, I go to the tried and true and trusted resources that I have gathered and that I know have validity, whether that be my national association of consultants called the Giving Institute, or our foundation, the Giving USA Foundation. If I go to my National Association of Fundraisers, which is called the Association of Fundraising Professionals. If I want information on Plan Giving, which I will go then to the Plan Giving societies in our different chapters. If I want information on hospitals, I'll go to the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy. If I want information on universities and colleges, I'll go to CASE. For the CASE is the Colleges and Advancement for the Support of Education. If I want nerdish information about about education, I might go to the Midwest Center for Nonprofit Leadership, our own research hub here at UMKC that is run by Drs. David Renz and Scott Helm. So there are a lot of true and tried. I try to go to the very best source that I can find, and then pick a few pieces that are going to be pertinent for me, or let that lead me to the next areas that might be pertinent for what I'm looking for.
Is there any time you don't need the data?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You can get caught up in preparing yourself and trying to know. You can only be better when you go out and you talk to donors, when you practice with donors. Practice with your best donors first, so that you can mess up, so that they can ask you questions. They will love you, Ruth, and they're not going to be as critical as the ones who you don't know. So practice makes perfect. And I feel like many of our professionals get paralyzed because they are afraid to go out and practice the art of fundraising, versus the science.
So we've talked about there's plenty of science out there. How about the art? Are there things out there that marry it? So for the real newbie, let's say in the nonprofit world, who becomes the executive director, development director, and everything, the smaller nonprofits where there's only maybe 1, 2, 3 people.
Absolutely. There's some great resources in our community here in Greater Kansas City, Ruth. I would say I would look on the Ewing, Marianne Kaufman website to see what they might have to offer. I look on the Midwest Center for Nonprofit Leadership. They offer a score of courses throughout the year. Go to the Nonprofit Connect website. We offer, and I say we because I've been a major volunteer and supporter of Nonprofit Connect over the years. We offer scores of different programming per year. So there are a lot of opportunities to find information and find resources that you can network. The Association of Fundraising Professionals, the Plan Giving Society, all these, the CFO Society, Chief Financial Officers of nonprofits. We even have a society for that. So there are lots of resources. You just have to really be interested, and you have to go out and research and then utilize them.
Can you give us an example where you have really used the data? You don't have to give specifics with a client, but that you've used the data and it really paid off.
You know, there's just so many opportunities that I have with working right now with about 40 different nonprofits. And what I would say, Ruth, that I do on a routine basis is I encourage our staff at Byrne Pelofsky and that they meet with boards of directors of nonprofit partners that are clients of ours, and that we help to educate them. We give them a 30,000-foot view of what philanthropy is, where it comes from, some of the educational areas that motivates donors, different types of fundraising efforts that they could consider, direct mail, grants, foundations, capital campaigns, annual giving, telemarketing, and that they really give them a educational opportunity to work with their board and educate them. I think it's really important also to educate the CEO of an organization, that the CEO of the organization of a nonprofit needs to be supportive, and he or she needs to be very involved as well. So I can think of many times that we have talked to a nonprofit about ways of motivating, don't just go see the husband, go see the husband and the wife. And, we know that data from the Women's Center at the Lilly School helps to prove that point. So there are a lot of different anecdotes that I could provide, and certainly I'm happy to talk to your viewers individually if they want to call us at Byrne Pelofsky, or come to byrnepelofsky.com and email me. I'm happy to talk to them and give them some advice that doesn't cost them.
And I would encourage our listeners to do that. You all put out, I know, a weekly e-newsletter, a monthly.
Yes.
It seems like I get it every week.
Hey, we're good at it.
You're good at it, but it also has tips and more information. And I would encourage our listeners, if you have an opportunity, to go hear Dr. Rooney, who we will have on this show.
Yes.
Who will give us just a little insight into the Giving USA. It's fascinating to learn about what motivates people and how they do it. Well,
Ruth, today we got a preview of what we're going to talk about on June 21, and I'd have to kill myself and kill you, Ruth, if I told our viewers today. But we will be telling you in 15 days, and it's some encouraging news, and we have some anecdotes around it.
Thank you, Dr. Philanthropy. We'll see you back soon.
Thank you, Ruth, and thank you to your viewers.
Inspired by Ewing, Marianne Kaufman, the Kaufman Foundation believes that every person, regardless of their background, can take risks, achieve success, and give back to their communities. We work together with our Kansas City community and beyond through investments in education and entrepreneurship that create uncommon solutions. By listening first to the communities we serve, we seek to understand the problems and dream big with people to build innovative programs that deliver results. Ewing Kauffman worked hard to make Kansas City a major league city. We strive to continue that legacy today, challenging ourselves and our community to take calculated risks, solve problems, and help empower people to shape their future. Learn more at Kauffman.org.
NFL for 20 years, at the helm of Kansas City Chiefs for 10. Mark Donovan, thank you for sitting down with us. This is great. And we wanted to dive in with you. Obviously, you're in the business side of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
That's a lot of stuff, which includes charitable and community activities.
Yes.
Talk a little bit, if you will, what that means.
Well, that's a broad question. What that means, a couple different pieces to it. Probably start with the foundation of what Lamar sort of set as one of the principles of this organization. He talked about how it was a responsibility of the Chiefs to be active in this community. And I always took that to mean to be truly active, to be a part of the community in every way. And obviously we're a huge part of the community in that we bring people together. We really do unite this community through the experience at Arrowhead, through the Chiefs' performance on the field, and just through the passion of our fan base and the entire kingdom. But it's also being active as a citizen and be a participant and a supporter of the things that are important to this community. And there's so many great stories of how that came to being. One of my favorites is how our Chiefs charity game came to being, and how Mr. Dunn and Lamar were talking about how they could support one local community. And Lamar said, well, we're focused on this other area, but what else can we do? Let's create something. And Mr. Dunn actually came up with the idea of, well, what if you took a preseason game and had all the suites donated, and then we charge for those tickets, and then we can donate the money to this charity. And that became Chiefs Charity Game, and it is the longest running and most successful charity game in the entire National Football League. And that came from Lamar and Mr. Dunn. But it came from that foundational belief that we had to be responsible. So that's the first piece. That also comes to life in the Hunt Family Foundation. And the Hunt Family Foundation is the form that really creates the impact in this community. And we can talk about how that came to being and what it is today and what the changes it's gone through. But really excited about what it's done. Privileged to be part of that team and be on that board and to help direct where the efforts go. And really proud of just the impact it's had in the last 10 years and how strategic we've gotten and what we've done to create even more impact.
Well, let's dive in a little bit to the Family Foundation and what it is and what you look to go out and support. There are over 8,000 nonprofits in this community.
Yeah.
I don't know one that says they don't need money or support. So how does this work for you all then?
Well, take it back. So 9 years ago, we just took a step back and said, what are we doing? How are we doing it? How are we making our decisions in terms of charitable giving and support? You know, it's one thing to give money. It's another to put your brand next to something. It's another to create more awareness for many of these causes. And what we found to do in that research, and we used the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation to help us do that. We felt like, as we've done in a lot of areas of our business, we felt like we need to bring experts in that space to give us some advice. And what we found doing that analysis was we were doing a ton, but it was everywhere. And while it had impact, it wasn't having as much impact. We felt like we could amplify the impact if we were more strategic. So we really tried to create a filter that give us the opportunity to be more strategic, more focused, and more direct with where we supported in the community. And that led us to what did we want to focus on, what do we believe was most important to us as an organization, to the Hunt family, and also to this community. What are the causes that both need attention and the community is focused on? And there's a whole list of things that we do support, and it's broad, but they really fall into some key categories. And probably the biggest focus is children. So you've all heard of the Chiefs Children's Game and the history of it, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. But the more research we did and the more internal discussion we had, it was how do we impact the lives of children in this community? How do we support them? How do we protect them? How do we better educate them? How do we offer assistance in their time of need? And you know, that's feeding them, that's educating them, that's giving them safety. And that's really where we've spent the bulk of our time. We do a lot more, but that's really where we spent the bulk of our time. And then that gave us the ability to really try to do more with fewer. And you made the point earlier, there are so many great causes and there's so many worthy causes that ask and need support. It gave us the ability, frankly, to have a filter where we could justify a no. To be able to say, you know, as much as it's a great cause, and we're not questioning the cause or the importance of it, it's just not where we're focused, because we believe if we focus, we can have a bigger and better impact. And that's led to a number of different really powerful partnerships. I'd go back to the charity game for a second, because I think it's a great example of focus. The Chiefs charity game, as I said, longest running in the NFL, the most successful. What we did with that about 6 or 8 years ago now, we looked at where the beneficiaries were coming from, like who were the beneficiaries of this program, what were they doing with it, and they were the big names that you would expect, harvesters, people like that. And we had a year with Big Brothers Big Sisters where, you know, Michael Lawrence and his team do such a wonderful job there, and they're the best at what they do in their business. And what we saw there was they took this opportunity and really maximized it. They set new records with how much money could be raised, and that the beauty of that model is it's really a great partnership between us and the assets and the brand and the awareness that we can bring to it, and the uniqueness that we can bring to it, and an agency really leveraging that and doing a ton of the work to really raise the amount of money that they do. And we learned from Michael and his team that this could be bigger and better and even more impactful. We go through a process with the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation to review it every 3 years. So every 3 years, a new charity gets the opportunity to leverage this. That's something that came from Clark when he looked at it and said, rather than just have one, a lot of organizations have one big cause, and that's what they do, and they keep growing. And that's a great strategy. We felt like, given our brand awareness and given the impact we could have, if we gave somebody enough time to have a really true impact, but then be able to rotate it so that we could continue to spread that impact and keep it as much as possible focused on the filter that we created, it'd be a really powerful tool. So I talk about harvesters, I talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters, I talk about, you know, so many of the big agencies in town have been beneficiaries of the campaign. The way we do the process at Greater Kansas City Foundation is they go through a bidding process, and there's a review, and it's very detailed, and it's
vigorous.
Thorough. It's very difficult, but it gives us the opportunity to make the best decision. So in about, I guess it was 6 or 8 years ago, we're in a right after Big Brothers Big Sisters, we're in a situation where we had 3 or 4 established agencies, big names that we all would know and recognize, and then this little agency. And we kept saying, well, we don't think they can do it. Like, this is a big undertaking. And we want it to be as successful as possibly can. So you really got to be careful not to give it to somebody who's not going to be able to leverage it, not going to be able to maximize it. And we were coming off such a big year. But this one agency just kept sort of being, like, we kept trying to take them out of the list, and then there'd be somebody at the meeting who'd say, wait a second, here's why, and here's why. And if we just give them a chance, maybe they can. And it was the Children's Place. And if you look at the history of the Children's Place, they do such great work. They are as aligned from a focus standpoint as a filter as you can be with the people and the children that they impact and the way they impact them. And we admittedly, with some real nervousness, awarded it to the Children's Place. And then we doubled down our support to try to make it successful for them. And you can talk to their people, they would tell you that it was overwhelming for them. But they really worked really hard, and they understood just what an opportunity it was. Set a new record their first year, set a record, broke that record the next year, broke that record again. So here we took this opportunity and put it in a place where our goal in giving it to them was to be able to prove that this model could work for not just the big names, but all
But
kinds.
the smaller.
And the key and the most, I think, inspirational for us was we knew that if we could take something this big and powerful and put it in a place like that, it would have an exponential impact on them, right? So one of the big agencies making a few $100,000, that's great. But for a small agency,
That's huge.
It is huge. They've been able to take and raise, over that 3 years, $2.1 million.
That's incredible.
But that $2.1 million is really what allowed them to create a new facility. So to be able to sit there and watch what happened and to know that we played a little part of that, that's really inspirational. And that goes back to why we do what we do. But it fits with everything I just talked about. It fits with the strategy, it fits with the filter, it fits with the discipline, it fits with the opportunity, and then opportunity creates real impact in our community.
So it's always making sure you're at that mission of what the charitable component and the foundation is focused on.
Yeah, that's the goal. And we get a great opportunity now with Cornerstones of Care, who is our newest, they're in their second year with the charity game. And, you know, they were a very different situation where they were 5 different agencies coming together the year that they got this opportunity. And we looked at that and said, could create some challenges, but could also create some opportunity. And they had a great year last year. They raised over $500,000 from the game. We expect them to do even better this year. And, you know, again, it's a great tool that we're able to utilize to impact the community.
I don't want our listeners to miss that you were recently recognized by the Voices for National Service.
Yes.
Interesting organization in and of itself.
Yes.
But for your efforts, it's a huge honor. Tell us a little bit about that and what that means to you and to the organization on the charitable side.
Yeah, so it's humbling. That's another long story in itself, but
well, we'll come back.
Yeah, it's humbling to be recognized individually. It's humbling to be recognized as, you know, representing this organization in those spaces. I'll try to tell the story as quickly as possible, but the reason I was recognized was our work with City Year. And City Year is a great story about how this town works and how it comes together, because my wife Kathy and I, when we first got to this town, and she's from Chicago, I'm from Pittsburgh, we got married and moved to New York City, went from New York City to Philadelphia, Connecticut in between. And so we've seen a lot of community, we've seen a lot of support, we've seen a lot of things. One of the most impressive things, if you're not from this town, when you get to this town, is the unbelievable philanthropic spirit. And what's really impressive about that spirit is it's where you expect it. It's in the halls, and it's in Cerner, and it's in, you go down the list of all the great names from this town who have the Kaufmans, who've made this town what it is. But they lead by example, and that example is powerful. It's it's an expectation in this town, and that's such a good thing. But if you're not from here, it's a little bit like it wakes you up. Like, wow, everybody does something here. So in my role, obviously with the Chiefs, it's such a high-profile role because of the Chiefs, not because of me. So I'm involved in a lot because I'm the president of the Chiefs. But my wife Kathy and I sat down and said, we need to do something that's Kathy and Mark that's not the Chiefs. It's part of this town. It's important. One of the other things I love about this town is it's authentic. Like, if you're authentic, you will thrive here. If you're not, they will see through it quickly, and you will not. So Kathy and I wanted to be authentic in our support of a cause and wanted to be us. And we, I look back at certain moments of this process, we really regretted this decision, but we somehow came to trying to help tackle the challenges of public education in Kansas City, Missouri. And I say that because the regret part, because we did a lot of work. We met with a lot of people. We had a lot of conversations that nobody ever knew about. Just the two of us trying to figure out how can we have an impact. And I met with one of the former school superintendents, and I asked him to just lay out his plan and strategy because we wanted to support it, but it just seemed like a tough challenge. And he did, and he laid it out passionately. And at the end of that lunch, I said, it just still sounds like an unwinnable war. It just, it's such a huge challenge. And he literally said to me, just trust me. This is going to work. 2 days later, he left for Detroit.
Great.
Well, great. And also, if you're Kathy and I, we can spend our time a lot of different places. And
right.
With an experience like that, why would you? So I was in a point where we were going to go do something else. Literally the week later, we're sitting in the Hunt Family Foundation meeting, and Clark says, I'd like you to take on the challenge of finding something in the educational system in Kansas City where we as a foundation could have a true impact. And I said to him, Clark, I'll do as you ask, but I'm telling you I've already done the research and we're not going to get there. We looked at everything. We looked at starting a charter school, we looked at supporting events, we looked at everything in between. And as he's done to me on multiple occasions, he just stopped me and said, just do the work. I'm going to keep challenging you to keep doing this. Is really important. I want you to go back at it. So I went back at it. And Ann Scharf, who you know, who really is our vice president of community and really does a fantastic job for us in that space, and I took on the challenge, and we started looking. And we got down the line of a couple big ideas with charter schools and educational programs that were just starting that we could support. And right about that time, Corey Scholes from Kaufman called.
We know Corey very well.
And Corey said, hey, have you ever heard of City Year? Now, I had heard of City Year because I had experienced and seen what City Year had done in Philadelphia. From my time at the Eagles. Our president at the time was very involved with City Year. He took me to one of their events, and it's a special thing. And it's education but focused. And it really takes on the challenge in the toughest of the tough. So in the toughest situations, in the most challenging schools with the most challenging students, City Year goes in and has a huge impact. So here I was with the Kaufman Foundation, right? A foundational part of Kansas City, suggesting a program I had heard of, which I knew worked, and it's educationally focused. So I felt really good. And then Corey said, we need you on the pilot team to convince them to bring it here. And we need to raise $4-point-something million before they'll even agree to come. And so we did. And with, ironically, the Dunn family, and I won't go through the list of names, but they're all the names you know well of the biggest foundations in this town, as well as Mayor James, as well as big corporate support, came together and convinced City Year to come to Kansas City. We then sponsored a team at Central Middle School of 9 individuals, core members. These are 18 to 25-year-old individuals who, instead of giving a year of their life in the Peace Corps overseas, give a year of their life to our urban core. And And in our case, we were one of the first 2 pilot schools, us and the Kaufman School. And we had 16 core members who spent a year of their life just being first in that school and last in that school, working near peer relationships with these kids to give them an opportunity to graduate, to give them an opportunity to get to the next level. Since then, that has grown to 58 and hopefully soon 75, 6 schools. This next year, we finally reached one of our big objectives, was to be vertically integrated. So City Year in Kansas City, you'll see City Year jacket, so the red jacket that you see. Our goal as a board was to have a student in a Kansas City school from their very first day of school, first grade, see a red jacket and know that red jacket is there to support them, and see a red jacket all the way until they graduate high school. And next year, for the first time ever, we'll do that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's amazing. And it's amazing to be part of that board, and it's amazing to be a part of the support of that. But it's really amazing that we have 58, hopefully 75 young Americans who are giving back to our community. And one of our goals in the board is to be able to say, let's figure out ways to keep them here after they're core members, because they're special individuals and they will have a huge impact on our community.
You run the business of the Chiefs.
Yes.
But you're involved with the charitable, philanthropic. How does that work? The NFL is a business. Yeah. I watch the NFL films, I adore all that stuff, but it is a business when you get down to it. So how does that meld? And maybe the bigger question is Kansas City unique in our approach to the other 31 teams?
I wouldn't say we're unique. I think the NFL has led by example here. If you look at what Pete Rozelle did when he was commissioner, and in a similar fashion strategically, he basically said, instead of doing the scattershot approach, we're gonna associate with the United Way, and that's gonna be our big thing. And that's really what now the league has then evolved, and now they do a lot more than that. But I think the league has done a really good job of leveraging their power to impact causes. So if you think about what the NFL did to raise awareness of breast cancer screening.
Yes.
Literally saved lives. Because women who'd never watched football now were hearing from their husbands that, hey, I'm going to buy you this pink hat because but the pink hat wasn't about the pink hat.
Right.
The pink hat was about go get screened. Because if you get screened and you detect it early, you can save a life. That's just one example of how the two interact. I think in our case, a great example of running the business side and also being involved with the community from a charitable standpoint is our Red Friday. Right? So Red Friday is a great tradition. It's part of the business. It's what we do. It is the kickoff of the season. It's a celebration for this whole town. And what we did was we said, how do we leverage this to have an impact on this town? And for the last 5 years, we've been partnered with Ronald McDonald House, where we sell flags. Those flags raise money for Ronald McDonald House. The business side of that is we're also partnered with the McDonald's franchise group here, and the league is partnered nationally with McDonald's. So all those pieces come together, which is a great story in itself, but the payoff is the amount of money that's raised that goes back to the Kansas City Ronald McDonald House. So taking a program that we could have given to any sponsor that could just be raising money, could be just raising awareness, but we found a way to tie that back to a cause that was important to this community.
Doing these kinds of things, how does it make you, Mark Donovan, the kid from Pittsburgh who went to Brown, how does it make you feel at the end of the day?
It's like I told the story about the children's place. I mean, to be able to drive by that facility and know you're a part of that makes you feel pretty good. To be able to accept an award in Washington, D.C. for the work you've done in the community, that makes you feel pretty good, especially given the inspiration I had when I came to this community, just seeing what everybody else had done. That's really important. It definitely helps you get through some of the tough days, because there are hard days in the NFL. There are hard days in the field and off the field. But overall, it's a big portion of what makes this job so special.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you know that there are medical grants available for families struggling with child health-related expenses? The United Healthcare Children's Foundation is accepting applications for the 2010 grant program now. The grants are available to help families who need financial assistance to pay for their child's healthcare treatments, services, or equipment not covered or not fully covered by their commercial health insurance plans. They include medical services and equipment such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, prescriptions, wheelchairs, orthotics, eyeglasses, and hearing aids. Parents and legal guardians may apply for grants of up to $5,000 for child medical services. For eligibility guidelines or to apply, go online to www.uhccf.org. That's www.uhccf.org. To be eligible for grants, children must be 16 years of age or younger, families must meet economic guidelines, reside in the United States, and have a commercial health insurance plan. This has been a public service message from the United Healthcare Children's Foundation.
So we are talking with the Priest Holmes, the running back of the Kansas City Chiefs, who is back in Kansas City. He was the honoree of a roast and toast, not only for what he did on the field, but lots of stuff he does off the field. Priest, bring us up to date on the kinds of things you're doing off the field these days.
Well, the first thing we're doing, Ruth, is scholarships. This is scholarship season for me. So in San Antonio, Texas, we are providing our scholarships not only for the Priest Holmes Foundation, but also for the Former Players Association that's there in San Antonio and Austin. And so these are graduating seniors, high school seniors. It goes online December 1st, and then it goes throughout February 16th, and then they'll send their applications in. And then we'll get a chance to review it. And then to all the happy students that will come away with a few $1,000s will be helpful for their first year of school in 2019.
Why did you decide to reach out to the community in this way as opposed to, any other kind of activities? Why was it scholarships?
Well, before scholarships, actually, when I was in Baltimore, I would always piggyback the older players at that time. We had players like Sam Adams, players like Ray Lewis. And so what we would do is just kind of like piggyback and follow up with things that they were doing. So originally I didn't know exactly which area that I would want to be in as far as giving back to the community. But I knew that as long as I kind of saw different things and participated and volunteered early on in my football career, that I would find something that stood out to me. And then, of course, I decided that education was really big. After I finished up with football, I went back to school at the University of Texas and got my degree. Finished up and got in education as well. So it was just a natural progression for me to continue on with providing scholarships. And I think that's one of the best ways for me to get involved. And then, of course, going into school districts and talking with students is also really helpful.
Well, when you were actively playing here, you worked with some kids in the KCK school district, and I believe it was a reading program. Do you have any memories of working with those kids and what that effort was like?
Well, I did a couple of different programs. I also worked with the Police Athletic League, and we had a chess club, which I really loved, participating in that. So for the chess club, we had an hour of participation where you would learn the instructions, and then the second hour, it was just free play, where kids could go against each other and play chess. And then for some reason, everyone wanted to try to get a hand at beating me. So we had a lot of fun during that time. And then, I continued with Team Priest as well while I was here. And then after I retired, I started getting more involved in the community. I would do golf tournaments here. I would be more in the community helping out, but then also worked with some kids in Wyandotte County, which was really exciting. And they had a principal's breakfast that I was able to participate in. And what they would do in that program is that they would track the kids on their attendance, their behavior, and the kids that would be hand-selected would then be able to participate in this luncheon. And so the fun part about that whole day was that we had a big old limo. We were able to take the kids for a limo ride and then bring them to lunch.
Was giving back to the community something you grew up with, or was it more of an adult onset?
No, I would say the closest thing to giving back when I was young is in an athletic platform, I guess. Whenever I would line up to play, say, throw-up tackle football where you're just in the front yard playing, I would always pick the team that had the kids that had the lesser talent. So in one way, I guess I was giving back because I never tried to get on the team that was stacked with all the best players. We'd have one side of the street with all the big fast, strong players. And then for me, I would always say, you know what, I'm going to get on the team with the players that are not as big. I said, because at least I'll get the ball all the time. So in one way I was trying to do it selfishly to get the ball all the time. But then I also was just, always there to help out the younger person that wasn't the biggest, wasn't the fastest. And of course, as I grew up, that was the one thing that was always said to me, especially when I went into college. Even when I came into the league undrafted, it was always that I didn't fit the prototypical, style of what a running back looks on paper. But I used to always tell people, it's how you judge a person is by their heart, and the heart is one particular thing that's hard to see of how large it is. So that's what really helped me and gave me my drive all these years.
Now, you mentioned beyond the scholarships, you do other things in San Antonio, where you now live. Tell us about some of those activities and how you've helped out in the community.
Yep. So one of the things that we do, we have Fiesta in San Antonio. It's for 2 weeks long. So it's fun, activities, music, lots of food, different types of food that are very authentic. And so we do a huge comedy show, which, of course, that's to help raise money for scholarships, but it also helps raise money that we do a huge turkey drive. We do a turkey drive not only in San Antonio, but also in El Dorado, Arkansas. So I also am a part of the food bank. I have a food pantry. So we also do clothing. We do hoodies. We do clothing. We do shoes. So bicycles. So any way that I can participate in giving back, I try to just use my platform as a way to be an encouragement in the community. And then not only that, I think the most part is when I work with young athletes as well. That's also real special to me as well, is because I always can see a young athlete and I can remember back when I was their age, what I was doing, what I was sacrificing, my efforts in order to achieve. And so that's real special to me when I get a chance to see young guys that just have that hunger in their eyes and they want to be, something more than what they are that particular day. But they don't necessarily know how to get there. But it's just good to be able to give them some encouragement.
A lot of young people have looked up to you and continue to look up to you. What's the role of the professional athlete today in the community?
Most people say, whether or not are you a role model? And I hear that a number of times. And I think some players, depending on just how they feel about themselves and what they're into, they may not feel that way. But I definitely feel that, as an athlete, and of course, as a student athlete, I definitely am a role model. And it really encourages me to be able to go back into the community and help out. I can do it in a lot of different ways. I can usually use my platform to speak to students in terms of giving them encouragement. I can also talk to students about overcoming, and because I always say that it's because I was always told that, it was going to be almost impossible, for you to be able to beat the odds. And coming from a background with military parents that were in the military, and then although I didn't have to move around as much, but there was still things about the military that were different about being in school districts, meeting new people, having to move schools. And so just in those different areas, I've always been able to be an encouragement.
What other influence did being a military, quote-unquote, brat, how else did that influence your life growing up? Because your parents both sacrificed tremendously as members of the military.
Absolutely. So my mom was Air Force, my dad was Army. And the one story I can always tell you that in terms of just coming from a military background was discipline. And it was in the form of a lot of different ways. But the one way I can always remember is I remember on Saturday mornings I would have to go around the house and clean the dry board that's right above the carpet that goes around the entire house. That who looks at that baseboard at any house? Well, my parents did. So, every month I had to go around with a bucket, soap, and a sponge, and I'd have to clean the baseboards. And I never really thought about why I had to do it. I just knew that I didn't like doing it. If I can get it done as quickly as possible, I'd try to get done with it. But I think it also just taught me a valuable lesson as well in a lot of different ways. And I think coming from that military background, those are some of the specifics, attention to detail, and then also, putting in your time of doing your work and completing it was something that I learned.
Family's really important to you. What role do they play in the kinds of things you're doing today?
Let's see. My family is pretty interesting because I'm always encouraged by the number one thing that I talked about in 2015. Of course, I was done with school. I left school in 1997, had played 11 years in the NFL. It's now 2007, and I go into retirement. And I'm retired for obviously 8 years before it really dawns on me that there was something that was left undone, and that was finishing my degree at the University of Texas. And so I inquired with At Life, which is an organization that the NFLPA works with our union. And they let me know how many credits I needed, and this is what I could do to finish up. Lo and behold, I had actually been waiting around over 20-some odd years before going back to get my degree. All I needed was 3 credits.
Oh, my gosh.
So, again, that's kind of how they play a part in my life. It's kind of me also going back and doing something that I had initially started. And so that's how I try to encourage them, by showing them that something that you started, you can finish. And it may take you a little while, but you can definitely finish it.
Who helps you with your activities in San Antonio? Is there a cadre of volunteers you work with, or former players?
So we have 2. So there's 2 organizations that I, participate in. So it's my foundation, the Priest Holmes Foundation, and then, of course, the NFLPA Former Players Chapter in San Antonio. And in each organization, we have volunteers. My foundation is volunteer-based. We definitely had an opportunity in the last couple of years to write a few grants. I wrote my first 3 grants, was approved by the United Way, and so I was really excited that, with not having any experience in writing grants, I just put myself in a good situation, found about the grant, got the application. I'm somewhat of an overachiever, so I said, you know what, I can put my mind to it and figure out out the format. So I was able to get the grant with the United Way, and we had a fitness program that we put into the school districts for after-school programs. And so that was very, very much fun. We had 250 kids a part of our program with after-school fitness, so it was good. The age group was between 5th and 8th grade. And then once we were working with that group, we finally were able to then work with the high school students, 9th through 12th in San Antonio. And so it was a great program, and it was actually the last 2 years of Barack Obama's time in office. And then, of course, once Barack was out, then Trump, there was new grants that you would have to fill out. And so we no longer decided to fill out another grant. But during the time that we were participating in the school district, we had a really good time. A number of students came through. And the one story I can tell you about the students that I had, you'd never imagine what kids go through. Because I was standing in the hallway at one of the schools at one particular time at Wheatley Middle School. And one of the instructors said, they pulled me aside and they said, well, I have a kid that I want you to talk to. So the kid comes out of the room, and I'm standing there, and the other teacher is there, and I'm telling him about the fitness program that we have, and that he can participate after school, and it'd be so much fun, and we can assess his fitness, and I'll get a chance to hang out with him. And so the kid looked down, and I had no idea what he was looking down at. And so I decided, to look a little closer, and he had an ankle monitor on. And this kid was in the 6th grade. And you can just imagine that his day-to-day of what he was going through, and where I thought kids just go to school and then, would want to participate in my program, there's a lot of kids that are actually dealing with a lot more stress that's at home. And unfortunately, he had an ankle monitor for 6 months, and he had to go straight home after school, and he wasn't allowed to participate. But then he looked at me and he says, you know what? Once I get this ankle monitor off, I can't wait to join your program. And so it's those little stories like that that mean a lot to me, that I can also be an encouragement to kids like that.
What do you want to do next with your foundation? Do you have other things that you'd like to branch into?
Well, the biggest thing for me is education. Because I finished up with my degree, I'd like to stay in that direction. I participate in a lot of different events to raise funds, but I think that providing scholarships, being instrumental with kids going in and speaking to schools in the school districts is the most important thing that I think is my niche and what I enjoy doing.
How are you feeling these days? Coming out of the NFL is a tough thing on the body and everything. So how is Team Priest doing?
Well, as far as just physically, there's a number of things that, I have medical names for now. We talked about one of them, which is neuropathy, which is nerve damage. And, it's one of the things that's just more of a way of life for me. It's not something that's an easy fix, but it's something that I'm able to manage daily. And I just continue to manage that. I continue to do my PT. But after playing 11 years in the NFL, when there was a number of things that you no longer have to worry about, like horse collaring, which is, prohibited from the league now, which when I played, you could actually horse collar a guy, and there was nothing wrong with that. You could also go helmet to helmet, and there was nothing wrong with hitting a guy with your face mask or the top of your helmet or launching into his knee. But a number of these things, I think, is making the game safer. But also, the sport itself is a very, very violent sport. And so I think that after a career of 11 years, I definitely have my bumps and bruises to be able to hang my hat on, that I kind of been there, done that. And, I don't wish it on anyone else.
What would you say is your legacy, even though you're a very young man? I'm sure you've had a little time to think about that. So what would that be?
Well, the legacy for me was providing for my kids' kids. I mean, that's one of the things that I've always had in the back of my mind. And so football gave me the ability to kind of create that platform. And then for me, just not to be, not being selfish, and not making decisions that could keep that from happening, is kind of just staying the course and making sure that I'm doing the right things professionally and financially. And so for me, it's always just wanted to be able to extend, my family. And then the things that I get to do, out publicly, is the things that I do throughout my foundation. So the foundation is kind of set up to where it will be in existence after I pass. And so hopefully my kids would want to continue to carry on that mission.
Well, hopefully that's going to be a long time from now. Any plans to come back into the Kansas City area and do a little bit more with your foundation?
Well, absolutely. I'm here at least 4 times a year. I'm usually here for different events, like the 101 banquet, where they recognize the most valuable player and the offensive player and defensive player, not only in the NFL, but also for the Kansas City Chiefs. I participate in different camps that are here. I'm now an ambassador. And if you can believe this or not, I'm in my apprenticeship, so I get to get hazed now by the older ambassadors and even some of the younger ones. But it's fun doing that. I'm glad that I'm participated. I'm not sure why I waited 10 years to decide to be an ambassador. I actually thought you had to live in Kansas City to participate, but you can do it if you're living away from Kansas City. And so I enjoy doing that. Participated in Deron Cherry's golf tournament, so I was able to help him out. And so working with a number of different nonprofits here, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy coming back, working with the players as well. Kansas City Chiefs always have appearances that, they call upon, former players to do. So I'll never leave Kansas City. I'll always be back. I think my heart is always here. This is like my second home outside of San Antonio, so I really enjoy it. I know some really great people, and whenever I'm in Kansas City, it always just reminds me of the time that we were kicking butt in 2001 all the way through 2007.
Yeah, how about those Chiefs now? You kind of laid the path for them.
Well, I don't know necessarily if we laid the path, but I think what they're doing is something special. Mahomes is doing a really great job as a quarterback. He's grown up within the last year. It's funny because we all got a chance to see him grow up, and I think they did it the right way by not rushing him into that position. And of course, Alex Smith was there, a great leader that he could actually learn from. And then the younger players that are on offense, they do a fantastic job. We talked about Kelsey and his height and his ability not only to be a tight end, but a receiver. And, when you look at his stats, he's catching the ball and having just as many yards as a wide receiver. And, he's a tight end with that ability. Tyreek Hill, what his capabilities of doing on the field. I mean, I watch TV now and, I know what fast look like, but he's like another type of fast that you see. And you can literally see it, whether you're in person or on TV, you can see how much faster he's running compared to the other team. And the defense, I've always said the defense was more of a bend, don't break defense, meaning they're going to give up points, but they're still going to hang in there and try to get you that win. And I think that the defense is definitely stepping up this year.
Well, thank you for sharing with us how you still care about Kansas City, even though you live down the road a bit. So come back and visit us on KC Cares anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you for listening to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit digital resource produced by Charitable Communications, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. KC Cares podcasts are available at kccaresonline.org, Spotify, and iTunes. To be a guest on our show or underwriting opportunities, please visit kccaresonline.org. Spread the love and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at KC Cares Online. Join us at our new time each week at 9 a.m. Thank you for listening to KC Cares on ESPN 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Do something good.
ESPN Kansas City is KCTE Independence and K233 DM Raytown, 1510 a.m., 94.5 FM.